Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us. Really do appreciate it here today. We have a great show for you. Good to be back on a busy Monday. Could not do the show, but we are back and better than ever for today. We're talking about some breaking news. An infrastructure deal has just been reached. The bipartisan infrastructure deal, senators submitting a $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. Biden is traveling to Pennsylvania to promote it. And we will take a look at what's exactly in it, its chances of passing, and you may remember there was a 3.5, I believe, currently $1 trillion infrastructure package that the Democrats are supposed to pass through reconciliation. We'll give you an update on that because, as many Democratic senators and representatives have said, they will not vote for it, at least the progressive ones. They will not vote for it unless the passage of the reconciliation, they will not vote for the bipartisan one unless the reconciliation one is ensured. Meanwhile, the lawyer, Stephen Donziger, who sued Chevron over the pollution in Ecuador, has been found guilty of contempt in an unprecedented case of the law being completely bought off by corporations. Absolutely disgusting. And another sickening story out of Frito-Lay. They got, small concessions in their contract, but we are telling you a little bit more about this one guy, Brandon Ingram, and just the awful conditions that he had to go through, and really as a kind of just encapsulation of what it's like to work in America. Yeah, we have a great show for you today. You're going to want to stay tuned through it all. But yeah, we start off with this most important thing, the infrastructure situation going on right now. It's not technically really the most important thing, actually, but it's what we're starting with today, as Joe Biden and the White House, along with a bipartisan group of senators, agreed on a quote-unquote, New York Times here, far-reaching $1 trillion infrastructure bill, and Democrats set an evening vote to advance it, paving the way for action on a crucial piece of President Biden's agenda. We now have an agreement on the major issues, and we are prepared to move forward, said Senator Rob Portman, Republican of Ohio and lead negotiator for his party on the infrastructure measure. Touring a truck manufacturing plant in Pennsylvania, Biden said he felt confident about it. The proposal is expected to fill in the details of an outline the group triumphantly announced in the White House in late June, but spent weeks haggling over as they toiled to translate it into legislative text while keeping their fragile coalition together, which is really something that could be manipulated at any moment from both sides, or because you have a Biden to Biden's left and to Biden's right. You got people like Lindsey Graham. It was kind of the one holding this together right now, him and kind of, moderate deal makers of his ilk, a creature of the Senate. Lindsey Graham has always been. And he and people like Bob Portman, they have been going back and forth on this with Biden for a long time. And I remember there was this little thing that was like Biden appeared to prioritize the partisan bill, the partisan infrastructure bill he's doing through reconciliation with the Democrats, over the passage of the bipartisan deal, which the Republicans freaked out about, and Biden obviously quickly cowered right behind them. But yeah, according to a fact sheet, it would provide about $550 billion in new federal money for roads, transit, water, and other physical infrastructure programs. Many of its own provisions are unchanged for the original framework announced last month, but it appeared to pare spending in a few areas, reducing money for public transit from $239 from $49 billion, and eliminating a $20 billion infrastructure bank meant to catalyze private investment in large projects. Maybe that's for the best. The loss of the infrastructure bank appeared to cut in half funding for electric. Oh, there you go. Yeah, there you go. Cutting out the key stuff for the EV stuff. That's cutting out half the funding for electric vehicle charging stations. The administration officials said had been included in the original agreement, jeopardizing Biden's promise to create a network of 500,000 charging stations nationwide. In terms of promises made, promises kept, Trump actually may be doing a little bit better than Biden. Not to say he did well on it, but Biden is just getting completely steamrolled here on some of his biggest promises, going out in front of America in his first big speech and saying, we're going to put, you're going to drive around highways all across America, you're going to see EV charging stations, and they're going to be electric trucks, electric cars, and they're going to be union made, all that kind of stuff that I greatly appreciate the rhetoric. But as I said at the time, it's probably just going to be rhetoric. And it seems that I was right, because Biden just does not have the political will, want, or desire to push through on matters like this. The new agreement significantly changes how the infrastructure spending will be paid for after Republicans balked at a pillar of the original framework, increasing revenue from an this is probably the biggest thing, because infrastructure, relatively bipartisan, pretty much the biggest sticking points, the biggest points of contention over infrastructure for many people in Congress is, how much pork goes to my district, how much pork goes to your state. It's that kind of a, back and forth game in terms of what gets who gets what for who, which geographic location. But the pay-fors here are going to be really under attack, because that's what really distinguishes this between, a regressive bill or a progressive bill. Republicans balked at a pillar of the original framework, which is increasing the revenue from an IRS crackdown on tax cheats, which was set to supply nearly 1/5 of the funding for the plan. Instead, negotiators agreed to repurpose more than $250 billion from previous COVID relief legislation, including $50 billion from expanded unemployment benefits that have been canceled prematurely this summer by 24 Republican governors. So money that was supposed to go to people is now going to go to physical infrastructure. Great encapsulation of how our government works. That is more than double the repurposed money in the original deal. The new agreement would save $50 billion by delaying a Medicare rebate rule passed by Donald Trump, and raise nearly $30 billion by applying tax information reporting requirements to cryptocurrency. Also, tax cryptocurrency, not the worst. It also proposes to recoup $50 billion in fraudulently paid unemployment benefits during the pandemic. And that, I feel like, is going to be pretty hard for them to actually get $50 billion. The idea that $50 billion was paid fraudulently all across this nation, I find very, very hard to believe, and I feel like they're going to come up probably a little bit short on that one. Just a random guess, but we will see. But Republicans blocked the Senate from moving ahead with the plan last week, saying that too many issues remain unresolved. Portman's comments and those of the other Republicans in the group who spoke after meeting with Mitch McConnell suggested they would now allow it to move forward. Again, I love this. It's so amazing how much power the Republicans have in the opposition. Like, when they're the opposition, and there's they are, you have to bring it through them to go through. Like, you have to come to the Republican, check with the Republicans. Oh, is it okay? It's okay. Because the Democrats have no political will on this or any issue. They just don't care. They just don't have the stones. I do not know what it is. But yeah, this is not nearly up to snuff in terms of, it never really was supposed to be up to snuff. What was actually supposed to be happening here is the progressive stuff was going to be put through this reconciliation bill, which is going to be a lot more important. But some Senate Democrats, including one key committee chairman, said they're still reviewing the plan before deciding to support it. Two guesses as to who that is, Bernie Sanders. But Senator Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York, said he believed we have the votes. If they do, Democrats would still have to move the bill through the evenly divided Senate over a Republican filibuster, which will require the support of all 50 Democrats and at least 10 Republicans. That could take at least a week, particularly if Republicans opposed to it, opt to slow down the process. Should the measure clear the Senate, it will also have to pass the House, where some liberal Democrats have balked at the emerging details. Right now, we've already seen Mondaire Jones coming out, my personal representative, my man Mondaire, saying that he is opposed to it, opposed to the bipartisan deal at current form. Let's get his statement up there for you. He writes, this is after the news that Senator Kyrsten Sinema does not support the Democrats' $3.5 trillion bill, but does support the bipartisan infrastructure deal. And without a Mondaire Jones writes, without a reconciliation package that meets this moment, I'm a no on this bipartisan deal. So that, hopefully with a few other people, progressives in both the House and Senate, would be a pretty big deal. So that's, good credit to him there. Hopefully we see some more where that came from. But yeah. We have the 5 Republicans spearheading the deal are Portman, Collins, Murkowski, Cassidy, and Romney. They urged their colleagues to support a measure that they said would provide badly needed funding for infrastructure across the country. Romney drew a distinction between the emerging agreement and a more expansive $3.5 trillion budget package that Democrats are preparing to push through both chambers unilaterally over the objections of Republicans. Again, great New York Times constantly framing it like the Democrats are doing some sort of like authoritarian power grab, which is AKA passing their agenda. Like they're ramming it through in this disgusting, undemocratic way. Oh no, like it is so transparent to see like what they're doing, and the framing there, it's just such a small and subtle word, but each word has a big connotation, and when you're putting in the biggest newspaper in the country, that is a very big deal. It is interesting to see how that bill is going to pan out, and we're going to be following that for you for sure. But we are going to move on in the meantime to talk a little bit about Stephen Donziger. What's up with him? It's not good. But first, before we go any further, let's hear a little bit about the summer sounds of SWRN. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the Spencer Walsh Radio Network. I want to tell you a little bit about our lineup for this summer. We start off with Newsflash, all new, of course, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can't miss it. It's our flagship show to get caught up on everything happening in the world around you. But stick around for some history and some entertainment. Learn about all the things you never learned in history class every Thursday with Hidden History. And get ready for a fun night out or turn your living room into the club with uncultured live mixes every Saturday all summer long. The Spencer Walsh Radio Network is your home for summer sounds coming all season long. Every podcast is available everywhere, so you have no excuse not to listen. All right, so we are watching very closely this fascinating story where pretty much what happened in this Donziger situation. We've talked about it a couple of times on the show, but pretty much what happened is Stephen Donziger, he is this lawyer who represented a group of indigenous people. I don't know if it was a tribe or it was in a certain region in Ecuador, I do know, against just this horrific, multi-decade-long pollution from Chevron, and I believe this has been going on before it was Chevron became Chevron. Originally it was Texaco, and Texaco was doing all this pollution. Chevron was really, their biggest role was covering up this pollution and really persecuting the crap out of this guy, Stephen Donziger, who sued them and ended up winning a $9.6 billion judgment against them. So pretty much what's happened then is just a constant waging of legal warfare against this guy for just really ridiculous charges, refusing to submit or acquiesce. I think one of the things was he refused to turn over his phone as a lawyer, which I don't know if I don't know if anyone's can see who's watched any kind of crime shows can see the fault in that, but there is a thing called attorney-client privilege, which you shouldn't have to turn over an attorney's phone records to the court, which could be a huge risk of attorney-client privilege. The judge who asked him to do this was practically brought on by Chevron, has deep ties to the Federalist Society, and deep ties to Chevron here. So this is in Reuters. So we're gonna have to read around probably some of this. Reading around just probably it's my new word, I guess, for reading past bias framing of events in mainstream media outlets. A disbarred American lawyer who spent more than 2 decades trying to prove Chevron Corp polluted Ecuador's rainforest was found guilty on Monday by a U.S. judge of 6 counts. By the way, he did prove it, they did. It's been proven. It's been confirmed in court. U.S. District Judge Loretta Preska in Manhattan ruled that attorney Stephen Donziger repeatedly and willfully defied court orders, including by failing to turn over his computer, phones, and other electronic devices. It's time to pay the piper, Preska wrote in a 241-page decision following a 5-day trial with no jury in May. In a statement, Donziger pledged to appeal. He called the decision an obvious travesty of justice designed to validate Chevron's demonized Donziger strategy and renewed his claim that Preska structured the trial to make him appear guilty. Chevron did not respond to any immediate requests for comment. So Donziger had said this case violated his constitutional due process rights and that the private lawyers serving as prosecutors for the United States were appointed illegally. So pretty much what happened, again, these were explicitly private lawyers appointed by because pretty much what happened was this case was Chevron tried to bring this case up through standard United States prosecutors, this contempt of court case, which, as I said before, stemmed from him refusing to give over his phone records, his conversations with indigenous leaders, because Chevron was trying to do whatever they can to invalidate the suit. One of the first tacks they went to is try to delve into the communications that Donziger had with his clients in the people who live in the rainforest there in Ecuador, and he refused to hand them up. It was a contempt of court case. The most any person got for this charge, especially as an attorney in the past, was about 2 months in prison. He's been on house arrest for 650 plus days, like 2 years, pretty much, more, almost 2 years. I don't know the exact number, but now we've heard now that he's been found guilty. He said the case violated his constitutional due process rights and that private lawyers serving as prosecutors again for the United States were appointed illegally. Just really horrific stuff. It's sickening because think about what happens if you challenge power, if you challenge corporations in a real serious way, not the way that so many people pretend to do, but if you force them to pay $9.6 billion for ruining an entire swath of a country where, a lot of very powerless people live, indigenous people, then your life is going to be destroyed. They will stop at nothing. They will dump billions and billions of dollars. They will take your life away. They will demonize you. They'll try and destroy you in any which way they can. And they're doing that here. So these lawyers here, these private lawyers, these Chevron, pretty much Chevron appointed lawyers, serving as prosecutors for the United States, they did not respond to requests for comment. Donziger has been confined to his home for nearly 2 years while defending himself. The latest case, twist in the case, stemming from Donziger's representation of villagers in Ecuador's Lago Agrio region, who sought to hold Chevron liable for water and soil contamination from 1964 to 1992 by Texaco, which Chevron later acquired. So Donziger is a Harvard Law School graduate. He won the $9.5 billion judgment against Chevron in an Ecuadorian court in 2011, but San Ramon, California-based Chevron sued Donziger in federal court in Manhattan later that year, claiming that he and his associates pressured the presiding judge in Ecuador. Chevron also said that Texaco cleaned up the pollution and state-owned Petroecuador was mainly responsible for the contamination. So why did the judge find otherwise? That's kind of the question. But in 2014, U.S. Judge Louis Kaplan refused to enforce the 9.5, and again, another guy with deep ties to Chevron who pretty much brought the court case. He refused to enforce the $9.5 billion judgment, saying it had been secured through bribery, fraud, and extortion. Chevron later sought to recoup the money Donziger personally reaped in the Ecuador case, and Kaplan ordered Donziger to turn over electronic devices to the company's forensic experts, pretty much saying, give them the materials they need to literally destroy you and put you in prison for as much as they possibly can. When you refused, Kaplan charged him with criminal contempt. Preska emphasized that the contempt case focused on Donziger's conduct, which, by the way, completely standard in any sort of legal case. Just ask any kind of legal expert, the hundreds of human rights experts that have voiced just outrage about this case, what they think about his legal conduct and if it's so crazy. And by the way, the sentencing in this case is grossly out of pattern and out of step with any sort of past precedent, as we talked about in terms of this charge, this contempt charge. So contrary to Donziger's assertion, the conviction was preordained. The court finds him guilty on each count for one reason and one reason only. Mr. Donziger did that with which he is charged, period. And this is someone, again, who has no morals. This person you can't say, and all the people who perpetrated this, you cannot say worse or more, like you can't say something too horrible about them. Like the person, what is inside this woman's soul? I'm just picturing a black pit void of anything. There's no evil, no fiery pit of burning. It's just nothing. It's just vacuous. It's just I will do whatever my masters tell me to do, and not obey, not question anything. It's just a worldview, just such a brainwash, such a distortion of any sort of just basic reality. It is just horrifying to see that this can even happen to someone, and also that there's no outrage. When your rights are really threatened, trust me, the corporate-owned media is not going to be talking about it. Lawyers for Donziger say he could face up to 6 months behind bars. Donziger was disbarred by a New York State appeals court last August, as of course the legal smear campaign comes against him incredibly fast. Rudy Giuliani has not been disbarred. Actually, you know what? I think he has, but yeah, there are plenty of lawyers who have done some sketchy things that have not been disbarred. So, you know what? I don't want to hear about this disbar thing is such a big deal, or it happens all the time. No, it doesn't. It just happens to people that people really want to, or powerful people really want to destroy. All right. Yeah, I do want to play a little bit of an interview from the man himself explaining this case.
Well, thank you again for having me. I'm probably a human rights lawyer. I've been practicing law for a bunch of years. I'm probably the target of the most well-financed corporate retaliation campaign in the history of our country. And it's culminated in a criminal contempt charge being filed against me by a judge after I refused to turn over my computer and cell phone to Chevron after I had helped my indigenous clients in Ecuador win a $9.5 billion pollution judgment against the company for dumping billions of gallons of toxic waste into the Amazon. So I think the salient point among many is that I am being prosecuted not by the U.S. government, but by Chevron. I mean, basically, the U.S. government, the SDNY, and the federal prosecutor here in New York refused to take up the charges when presented by the judge. And the judge then appointed a private law firm to prosecute me. They're being paid by taxpayer dollars, about $1 million so far on a misdemeanor. And it turns out that the law firm, Seward and Kissel, has a client relationship with none other than Chevron, the very company that I had crushed in court, along with a bunch of other lawyers down in Ecuador, in their preferred forum where they insisted the underlying trial be held. So all of this has led to this extraordinary situation where I was put on trial by this judge who charged me, prosecuted by an individual with direct financial links to Chevron. The main witnesses were Chevron lawyers. It turns out that a second Chevron law firm has spent millions of dollars bankrolling my private prosecution by using its lawyers to help the private prosecutors. And this is the first corporate prosecution in U.S. history. And frankly, I think it's terrifying what it means for our country. I mean, it's really a new corporate playbook that is designed to intimidate the heck out of lawyers and human rights defenders and campaigners, that is, people who take on the fossil fuel industry. So I'm in a difficult personal situation right now. I've been locked up in my home, by the way, on a misdemeanor for almost 2 years with an ankle bracelet. They're really targeting me, and it's Chevron, not the U.S. government, which is the scariest part.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Stephen on Rising back in May, and you can see obviously that doesn't include the new update of him being convicted, but he's in that case now, and he's still fighting it out. His website is, I believe, DonzigerDefense.com. But if you want to learn a little bit more about the case, it's just an absolutely blood-boiling, sickening story that this could happen to somebody. Just the fact that, again, just the strings being pulled out here, and the fact that it can happen, no one's going to talk about it, and it's just how can you expect these people to defend? Is there any hope in the world? Because everything went right for them. Think about it. You're going up against a multi-billion-dollar, multinational corporation. Your chances of victory are so low. They put it in the Ecuadorian courts purposely so that Chevron would have a better chance of succeeding. They win anyway, and then all of a sudden it's you who are in jail. Like what kind of world is that we are living in? It could only be this one. All right, let's move on to our last story, and unfortunately, it is not any better. This is the Frito-Lay situation. We've been talking about that strike. I believe we talked about that this past Friday. But good news is we have seen a victory. There's a Frito-Lay workers in Kansas in the Topeka plant there have ended their strike. They're ending a 19-day strike with the weekend ratification of a 2-year contract that guarantees them at least 1 day off each week. So before they were doing 12-hour days, 7 days a week. Now it's just 6 days a week. Great. And it was like a $1 an hour wage, something like that, wage raise. Workers at the Topeka plant had called on the snack food giant to end forced overtime and 84-hour work weeks. 84-hour work weeks. Think about that. Saying they've been pushed to the brink as the factory revved up operations during the pandemic. According to the Bakery, Confectionery, Tobacco Workers, and Grain Millers International Union Local 218, many staffers worked as much as 12-hour shift with as little as 8 hours in between, according to a statement by the union's international president, Anthony Shelton, issued earlier this month. They're forcing us to, again, the current workforce to do triple and double shifts. In addition to the day off guarantee, the deal will give the union more input on staffing and overtime decisions and raise wages 4% over 2 years. It is a really, really just disgusting conditions here all around. People, when they were doing the strike, they were happy to be outside in the 90-degree heat because it was literally cooler out there than in the factories where there is no air conditioning or heating. So it's just really draconian conditions. And just if you look at, there are some significant victory. Like it's not like insignificant. Like people, their lives will improve. I guess they get Sundays off now. Like that's one thing. Forced overtime, suicide shifts, whatever the case may be. That being in the rearview mirror is certainly a good thing to be sure. But the fact that they had to go on strike for almost 3 weeks for this, and the results are still so meager, just shows the complete and utter depravity of these people, and just the fact that. This is Chips, as this woman, this wife of this worker here, Brandon Ingram, he was electrocuted on the job, disabled, and denied medical care. Here's a clip from More Perfect Union covering this about how awful, awful, awful they treated him.
They are stalking us, recording my kids playing in the yard.
I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy.
I tried to hold it in, I'm sorry.
So I got the job at Frito-Lay in January of 2011. Prior to Frito-Lay, I was in the United States Navy.
Leaving the service, he just needed to matter. He needed to belong and have a purpose. We both thought he found that in Frito-Lay, and so we kind of centered our life around it.
I worked hard. I bust my butt every day, in and out. Shit, my wife was gonna divorce me because she didn't even think I was at work for real.
No, I did not believe my husband just spent 20 hours at work. No one would believe that. He's not a doctor. It's chips. It's chips and dip.
I went on a stretch once.
Yeah, this is like why does it more workers just come? They're making their stock rose 14.1% over the course of the year, and this is the mind of how bosses think when left unrestrained in this country. Like they are not only. Can they not treat their workers with any kind of basic dignity, or pay them well, give them good benefits, just show them any kind of basic respect? They just work them like they're machines, like they're animals. They don't even let them come in and get a full night's sleep. You could finish a shift at 7 and be back at 3 in the morning for another 12-hour shift. Under the way that Frito-Lay would have had it. These people are, again, just like that Judge Preska, just like all those other people in the Chevron story. They are people who are just they know no depth. They know no depth to just the depravity. And this is someone who is a Navy veteran. That's supposed to mean something a little extra in this country. And he describes what happened to him when he was electrocuted and what happened after that.
It's using a dock door. You press the button and it automatically does what it's supposed to do. I got electrocuted. I was taken to the ER, but the emergency room they took me to was 45 minutes away. We passed 4 hospitals on the way to the hospital they wanted to take me to. And the reason that is because they signed a contract with a certain hospital and a certain network.
From the very next day after the accident, my husband was never the same. He was working really hard to even just get up on to the side of the bed. Usually he's like hops out of bed and he hurries up, puts his clothes on, and he shoves food down his throat and he's out the door, in 30 minutes. He was used to it. He was trained to do that in the service.
When I say I was healthy as an ox, I was healthy as an ox.
We just didn't have any answers. They said he should have been fine, but he wasn't.
I didn't get any time off after the incident. I had to call off the next day as a sick day. I told you I was in pain. I told you it hurts when I walk. And it was like, okay, are you going to be here tomorrow? I was a site lead, and I know what that entails. You're a leadership of the whole warehouse. So if you have to fill in, you have to fill in. I asked for some type of relief, period, because I was still obligated to work, like picking cases and unloading trucks or rotating product on a forklift. I asked for a chair that I could sit in that would make me more comfortable while I'm doing my office work. They denied it. You're either 100% or you can't work. It just felt like they was just trying to push me out. Eventually I got an MRI by my primary doctor.
I hate to say that, like, you shouldn't have to like be pushed out of a job because of disability. Like, that's just a sign of just sick, depraved society. But I mean, who, like, clearly this is what we are right now. But it shows again. He said it showed they had two herniated discs
in my back, and he was like, "You shouldn't be doing anything. They could only fix it with surgery."
And my husband still had to work this whole entire time.
He has now liver disease, which is linked to serious electric shock. So this guy, this company ruined his life. And what did they do? They sent cars to spy on his wife, spy on his kids, spy on him to build the case in court or whatever, and the disability workman's comp kind of case or whatever court, whatever system that is that deals with that, to make the case that he wasn't really injured. Like, this is just, like, people who do this are evil. Like, there's no way, like, there has to be, thank God he's doing them. God bless him. Like, they do have a GoFundMe. I think I'm going to see if I can look that up for a show and put that in the description. But it is really, really just disgusting. It's just, I have no words. They sent. Not only did they let him get electrocuted on the job, past 4 hospitals on the way for, because they signed a contract, but it's not even just because they had a personal interest. It's all just because of bottom line. It's all because of profit. It's the same reason why they had these people, why they had these workers do, not hire any more of them, but also have them do, like, shifts that are just ridiculous and have them work 12-hour days, 7 days a week. You finish a shift at 7 and you're back by 3 a.m. for the next 12 hours. It's because they care about profit. They don't have a mind for anything else. And there's less extreme versions of that, and probably even more extreme, all throughout the country, because that is the system that we live in. It is designed to do that, and it's designed just like people like Chevron who dump and ruin entire regions of certain countries just for profit. It's designed to support and encourage that. Like, this is what we do. Our system is not built up to stop. It's really kind of it's really just a dystopian, sickening thing. And the fact that after that, now that he's doing them, it's come out in discovery that they sent, like, agents to his house to try and determine how hurt he really was, to try and paint him as a liar who wanted to, like, leech off the company disability. Like, there is no end to it. And what did I say before? It is always the people who complain that no one else is doing work and people are leeching, those are the real leechers in society. Always, without fail. If you see someone on CNBC talking about the leeching economy, guarantee you he spends 1 hour a day on his computer, and then, the next, 4 or 5 days of the week doing, blow off of his desk on Wall Street. Like, who knows? Like, these people are, I've said it before in this episode, they're depraved. Like, it's unbelievable. Yeah, best of luck to that guy, Brent. Oh, that is unfathomable. Yeah. He's a pinched nerve caused by 2 herniated discs, and they can do that with surgery.
2 of the discs in my neck because they were bulging into my spinal cord. I wasn't getting enough fluid to my brain.
It could have killed him.
If I didn't have the surgery, the doctor said any small fall or accident or something like that, and I would have been paralyzed from the neck down or dead. I still have to have surgery on my lower lumbar spine.
From the moment that he couldn't work anymore and needed short-term disability, Frito-Lay abandoned us.
I had to file for short-term disability and then long-term disability. Got approved for long-term disability.
In this video, he's wearing a neck brace.
Months later. So
permanently disabled. Just, it's disgusting. That's all the time we have for today. But please, if you can find any kind of way, any pocket change or anything you may have, please send some money to this guy. If there's anybody who deserves it, just been absolutely life ruined, and it couldn't happen because this guy's a veteran. Like, it's just sickening. Put his GoFundMe in the description.